Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm Terry, your host, coming to you from the Tim Travels home here in Maryland. What's today? I think it's the 26th. Wait, 26th? Maybe it's the 27th. I can't remember. It's the day before Thanksgiving. It's like Wednesday. And I am off the road, obviously, and I'm happy for that. I wanted to run this past weekend, but they were trying to get people home, and they wanted to make sure that I was going to be home because I definitely wanted to be home Monday and Tuesday. And the reason for that was that I really had some painting I wanted to get done at my houses and outside painting. So I wanted it to be warm enough. And man, can I tell you, getting old sucks. I mean, when I was a kid, like a teenager, I would paint barns and houses like in the summertime. I also worked on farms and everything, but I legit, like so I rented an extension ladder, so like kind of a heavy duty extension ladder. And yeah, just like moving it around and painting, like I was painting the eaves and the trim. So like having my arms, like I feel like, I still work out, but not like I used to, of course. And but I feel like I was in the weight room for like 4 hours and way overdid it and stuff. So yeah, and then I also I've had like tons of brush that I've taken to because we had some trees cut down. We had some old fruit trees in the back of our property, and my wife had them cut down. So I've been taking parts of those, and then some other trees that just had to go, taking them to the dump. And we have a trailer that I'll take the brush and cut it up into small enough pieces to fit in the trailer, so it's not like sticking out and giving everybody Arizona pinstriping as I drive down the road to the landfill. But we can take stuff to the landfill if it's like that kind of stuff, yard waste or cuttings or whatever. We can take that for free. We don't have to pay. Like if you have trash, you got to pay by the pound or the ton or whatever. Like so, appliances can be recycled for free. The yard stuff free. So just I don't have to go across the scale to do that. But yeah, I've been pretty productive. My wife's happy with me, so that's always good. And I'm happy with myself because sometimes when I had home time in the past, over the past like 5 years, it takes you a day and or so to get reacclimated, and that's why never been a fan of like the idea of doing 34s at home. Although I'm starting to get more used to it at the company I'm at, and in fact, I just got off the phone with my driver manager, and he was like, "Hey, I can get you a load on Friday if you want it." And I was like, because they put a load on me for Monday, and he was like, hey, he called me. He's like, "Hey, you want this load on Friday?" I'm like, no. I mean, I appreciate that he did that, but I was just like, I'll just stay home over the weekend. So I'll go back out on Monday, and I'm told that starting on the week of the 8th, we're gonna start, moving some sawdust. So that if that comes to pass, then that'll be the first sawdust I've moved since I've been at Bowman. So which is what I was hired to do. So we'll see how that goes. But last week I got a nice check, and I think on Friday I'll get a decent check. So I'm happy with where I'm at and honestly, my wife, this is funny. My wife was like, "You've been around a lot." She goes, "I haven't spent this much time with you for an extended period of time in a long time." I'm like, and I was like, "Are you getting sick of me?" She's like, "No." And in fact, I was cutting up brush to take to the dump, and I said, "Hey, I'll let you know when I'm leaving." And I came in to grab my wallet, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go with me?" She's like, "Well, I got chores to do here." And then she was like, I'll go with you. So we took B, and we just went to the dump. Speaking of B, people ask about her periodically, And so I want to just show you what the life of a retired truck dog is at my house. Um, the I think it was yesterday morning. I got up because my daughter goes to school early, and got up around 7. And B sleeps in my daughter's room. But here's the deal: B has her own mattress. And when I say her own mattress, I don't mean like some freaking pet bed. I mean she has a twin mattress, a legit twin mattress that's got like this fuzzy blanket on it and everything, that's on the floor next to my daughter's bed, because my daughter's bed is kind of high, and so B does not jump as well as she used to. But she can get from her mattress up on the bed if she really wants to. So here's the scenario. My daughter goes to school. I come out of my bedroom. This is what I see. Yeah, so B is B is happy being retired. I mean, she's got a great life, and all she does. And then like the other night, she wanted to sit in my wife's chair in the living room so bad that she kept bothering my wife to like get up and stuff. So yeah, she is spoiled. She is very spoiled. So one of my favorite things to like kind of like look at, because it's a great way to get information quickly, is this thing called the visual capitalist. And it's good information, but it's usually like a diagram, or it's a map or something like that. And one of the things I came across, I've shared stuff with people, privately in the past, but like I shared this thing with a guy. We were talking about like socialized medicine, right? And I shared with him that like there were like all these industrialized nations, and the United States had the highest per capita cost for healthcare, even though we have one of the lower life expectancies for industrialized nations, which I think is kind of interesting, right? Like you'd think the countries that have the best life expectancy would also spend the most on healthcare, and that's not true. We just have a jacked up system because, hey, BB, because it's run by companies, right, who are in it for profit. But this particular visual capitalist I saw yesterday, I thought was cool, because I'm always interested in travel and going new places. And it was the top 10 visited places or cities in the world in 2023. And visited means by tourists. So not people going someplace for work, or not, it's got to be for like tourist reasons. And I was really surprised at some of the who made it into the top 10. And I was very surprised with number 1. And number 1 is a place I haven't been. I've been to this country, but I haven't been to this city. It's Istanbul, Turkey. But it kind of made sense, because Istanbul is really it's like the common place between the West and the East. And it has been for centuries, right? Formerly known as Constantinople. It was where the East and the West met. And it still is a huge crossroads. So Istanbul, Turkey, number 1. Number 2, not a big surprise, London, England. A lot of cool stuff still in London. And, I think that a lot of people around the globe still gravitate towards England, right? Like whether it's the subcontinent, whether it's the Middle East, the British influence around the world was enormous, and in a way that continues to today, even though it's not the country it once was. Number 3, Dubai. Now Dubai is one of the United Arab Emirates. So that country, the United Arab Emirates, is actually, I believe, seven emirates, right? And emirates are run by emirs. So the Emirate of Dubai is where that city is. And I said I've been to Dubai a couple of times, and I said to my wife, I said, Dubai has become like the Vegas of the world. It's just like this over the top, place, and just opulent. And yeah, it's just that kind of place. It's not a place I would necessarily think, oh yeah, let me go on vacation there. But number 4, also in Turkey, Antalya, Turkey, and it's on what is called the Turquoise Coast. And I honestly had to look it up because I haven't been there, but it's like a lot of people go there, and it's like, it's kind of like any other place on, like the Mediterranean, and it's, sun drenched, and a lot of, rich people and yachts and stuff. But that's number 4. Number 5, not a surprise that it would be on the list, Paris, France. Kind of self-explanatory, the city of light, right? Number 6, Hong Kong. Hong Kong and the number 7 city, Bangkok, Thailand, has had exponential growth in tourism, but Hong Kong was shut down a lot longer than other cities for COVID, apparently. I didn't know that until I read the Visual Capitalist. But yeah, Hong Kong and Bangkok, number 6 and number 7 on the list. Lots of stuff to do there. Hong Kong, of course, is a tiny place, but it's now controlled by the Chinese, the People's Republic of China. Bangkok, ancient city. I've met people that, I've never been to Bangkok, but I've met people that have been there, and they, speak highly of just visiting Thailand and stuff. Number 8, probably not a surprise that it would be on this list, New York City. Number 9, and by the way, if you've never been to New York City, you really need to go. And the reason I say that is because New York City in many ways is, I said kind of like Istanbul is a crossroads of the world, but I've said that about Times Square, right? And New York City is a lot of things, but it's not a lot of things that sometimes people think it is. I've been to New York City a gazillion times for business, for pleasure, just going to see a show or just going to see the sights. So many awesome museums. One of my favorite things to do is go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's right on, Central Park. Walk through Central Park. The thing is that the city is, it's very vibrant, and there's a lot of cool stuff to do there. And oftentimes people talk about safety, and I just have never had any issues with safety. And it's not like I don't go outside at night. I mean, I'm conscientious about where I go, but that's true wherever I go. But I'm pretty comfortable in New York City, especially Brooklyn and Manhattan. I mean, there might be some areas, and I've been around Staten Island a little bit, and I just don't have this feeling of dread when I'm in New York City. So if you haven't been, it's just, there's so much to do. There's so many cool things to see, and a lot of it's free. So number 9, Cancun. I've never been to Cancun, so I don't know, but it's number 9 on the list. So lots of people must like it. I certainly know a lot of people that have gone there. And number 10 is Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Now, and again, this is tourism, but I do think it's probably huge numbers from people going on Hajj. And if you don't know what Hajj is, it's a Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca. And this past year, it was pretty deadly for some people just because of the heat, because it's it's a religious pilgrimage, so there's things that people boxes to check, if you will, and people and I guess there are a lot of Hajj tour operators that maybe are unscrupulous and don't make sure people are taken care of. So that's not really that cool, but that's probably the reason that Mecca has such high tourist numbers, is because of Hajj. Okay, so I just found all that interesting, right? And some of those places I haven't been, and I'd probably like to go, like Istanbul. I think there's probably a lot of cool stuff to see there. So one of the things that comes up periodically, and a lot of trucking, especially trucking YouTube channels, mention this and kind of allude to it, And that is, what is it about this lifestyle? And I got to thinking about this the other day because I did a pickup in New Jersey, and this place isn't particularly noteworthy except that they had no bathrooms, not even a porta john, and I needed to go to the bathroom, and I thought, why is it that I'm willing to put up with this? And I think the answer is that, like anything else, right? Like we take the good with the bad, and we tend to just focus. Most of us tend to focus on, does the good outweigh the bad? And but I will tell you that if every single shipper or receiver that I went to had no bathrooms, then it probably would be a lot bigger deal. Although I've said in the past, if you don't want to have a bathroom for me to use, I'll find a place to go to the bathroom on your property. I still stand by that because, human beings have, I feel like it should be like a right, like you don't want to have a bathroom, that's fine. But, don't complain when somebody craps in your parking lot or whatever. But I was thinking about that in terms of, it was an easy pickup. And then eventually I did get to go inside to this office, and then they had bathrooms available. But, until I was able to go inside, there was nothing to use. But I was thinking about it in terms of just like, what is different about trucking? When people get into trucking, what is it that they're going to find that's going to be, and they're going to be like, what the hell? Like they come from another job, another career. And so, if you're thinking about this, and I know a lot of times at the end of the year, right, people want to reflect on what their year's been like. And 2024 has been pretty weirdly eventful for me. I mean, a year ago, I was at Prime, and it seems like it was a long time ago, but it really wasn't, right? Like I left Prime in April, and then I was at Well for a few months, but I was very dissatisfied there. And then of course I had my little adventure at Leonard's Express. So I feel, sorry about that, I just had to get some Diet Coke. So I feel like it's been a weird and interesting year, and I'm grateful for where I still, like how things have fallen out. And I've said this before, I don't love everything at my company. And there's some stuff I really definitely don't love or like, but in a way it's been a great situation for me, because I get to be home more. And I had a conversation with an old client today about some stuff that I want to do, and he was like, we talked for like an hour, and he was like super supportive, and he's like, yeah, man, he goes, you just let me know, and I got stuff that needs to be done and people that you should talk to. So I'm optimistic about all that stuff as we go into 2025. But I just wanted to run down a few things that you're gonna face if you come into trucking. And this is, and I'm trying to be very general. I've been at several companies, like I know people that have been driving about the same amount of time as I have, and have only been at one company. And while changing jobs is not that much fun sometimes, other times it like opens doors that you wouldn't have had. And I'm grateful for all the experiences I've had, because I've kind of seen the good, the bad, and the ugly over the past, like 5.5 years. But the first thing that's going to happen in any trucking company is going to be orientation. Some companies have really good orientations, but other companies really start to, it's kind of weird, like how they deal with their recruited drivers or recruits right off the bat sets the tone. And, I hear these stories about people riding a freaking Greyhound bus or something for like 32 hours to get to orientation. And what I would say about that is that, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And if you're not coming from a great situation, that may be your lot in life. But, orientation should be the company putting their best foot forward. If you go to orientation and you're new to this industry, but you're still like, wait a minute, this just doesn't seem right. Like they don't make sure you get fed. They don't make sure you got a place to stay. Like that, all of that stuff the company should be taking care of. You should be able to know that you got a place to sleep, a place to eat. You're gonna get 3 meals a day somehow, right? Like they're gonna give you money. Like when I went to Schugel, they it was a little bit loosey goosey, but they would just hand out cash. So you could get fed in the evening and fed at lunch. And of course there was breakfast at the hotel. And they made sure we had a way back and forth. And then all they asked was they would give you the cash. They'd be like, hey, just bring us a receipt, So if they gave me $10 and I'd go to Culver's, it was right next to the hotel, and I'd spend $11.50, I'd just show them the receipt. They're like, okay, cool. But a company should be putting its best foot forward in orientation. If they're treating you like crap in orientation, I guarantee it's not going to get better. And that's the interesting thing about the Leonard situation with me. I felt like their orientation some parts of it were good, but other parts of it, I was like, these guys are not hitting on all cylinders. And, like the story I told, the guy was just kind of an asshole to me. And no one should be orientation should be the most pleasant experience possible. Next thing, training. I met a guy one time, we were at a truck stop, and he was and I'm not saying this is just this company, but he was at Western Express, and he was a flatbed guy. And he told me straight up, he goes, man, he goes, I got 2 hours of training on flatbed. And I said, you know what, man? I said, you're risking your life and your career if you don't, especially in flatbed. Because, like a dry van or a reefer, you put the crap in there and you close the door. The most that'll typically happen is that maybe the crap will be all over the inside when you get to your delivery. But you won't have tipped the truck over. You won't have cargo on the highway where you have some liability or, either civilly or criminally. And training is so important. It's like I was pretty new driver. I'd maybe been driving 6 months, and I was out in Arizona, in Williams, Arizona, at the Loves, and this guy from Butler Transportation pulls up, and he's like, "Hey man, can you help me back in?" And it was a really open area, and I was like, "Well," he goes, "No, I know I can back in there and I'll eventually get it." He goes, "But I want, if you can give me some pointers." And I was like, okay. I said, I haven't been doing this that long, but okay. And turned out he had been in the Navy. He had been a boiler tech in the Navy, and we kind of just hit it off, but he was like, yeah, man. He goes, I got my CDL at a CDL school. I went to Butler. And he had originally wanted to drive with his son at DOT, but they didn't have any positions open. And so he goes to Butler, and he goes, I had to do I think what he said was 350 hours on the truck with a trainer, or maybe it was 300 hours. But keep in mind, a week is 168 hours. So it wasn't even 2 weeks. And he's like, he goes, I might have backed up once, And so, I just kind of talked to him while he was backing and experimenting and learning the truck and stuff. But training is, if a company doesn't want to train you, if they're like, yeah, you're good, you're not. Okay, you're not. Training is important, and there are lots of companies out there with good training programs. Prime just lowered their training mileage requirement to 20,000 miles. And I said to somebody in a group text that's at Prime, I'm like, man, what is that, 2 weeks? Or no, I said, well, that's less than a month, right? Because if you're running teams, right, 20,000 miles should be less than a month, right? Because you should be knocking out 5,500 to 7,000 a week. So that's certainly going to be less than a month, because a month is 4.3 weeks. And but he said no, they just don't have as much stuff to run, so it probably will take at least a month. And then another issue is pay, right? Like people come to trucking presumably to do better, or at least as a second career. But nobody wants to be taken advantage of, right? And nobody wants to be out there running their butt off for 35 cents a mile. But there are companies that pay way below the market rate, even for experience. You know, I talked about Trans Am in my last video, and Trans Am, like right on their website, says they want 6 months experience, but they're willing to start people out at 40 cents a mile. And, you know, I had some people push back and go, oh, like this one person was like, oh, my husband's making this much money. I'm like, okay, great for him, but that's not what Trans Am says this on their website, right? Like when somebody says they're going to pay you a range, you can bet that most of the time it's going to be at the bottom end of that range, right? Like they'll say 40 to 55 cents. That's a 15 cent, you know, variation. And just as a percentage of it, that's like 40% of 40, right? Almost 40% of 40. So like you know, your pay could go up by 40% and you're, you know, in the 50s when other companies are paying like 60. And I'm not picking on Trans Am, I'm just saying it's something to look at. And one of the reasons that I change jobs so frequently is to just because like I was making X at night. Well, then I was like, okay, I can make more at Schugel. And I did, but not a lot more. And I was unhappy with how professional they were. So I went to GP Transco. I made significantly more. So just in like a year's time, so like between my first and, you know, my first anniversary, my second anniversary, I really increased my wages by about 30%. And that's might be something you have to do in this industry. Although switching jobs now is harder than it was back when I was doing that in my first year. But you got to look at pay, you know, and pay isn't just cents per mile, it's miles, right? You got to run the miles. Doesn't matter. Like I was at 62 cents a mile, but then I'm only getting 1,800, 2,000 miles a week, right? I'd rather run for less and run more miles. Yeah, it's technically more work, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to be out for 7 days, I'd rather run 2,800 miles than 2,000 miles. Another thing that that I kind of alluded to earlier is you're going to have to expect to be treated poorly a lot of the time by shippers and receivers. Yeah, there are shippers and receivers that treat you great, and I'll give you some examples. Chobani is always the Chobani in New York. I never wasn't treated well, and I oftentimes left there with a bunch of yogurt. Right, that was cool. You know, I've picked up a lot of Hershey facilities treat you pretty well. They have bathrooms inside that they don't care if you use. They'll give you free candy. I mean, it doesn't take much to be nice to a truck driver, and yet it seems like a lot of these companies, like I've gone to places where they won't let you in the building, and a lot of this came about during COVID, and they've just used as an excuse to treat drivers like crap. They make you wait around. They, you know, they leave the inside of your trailer trashed. I could go on and on and on, right? And we all know that different parts of this industry, they treat you differently, right? Like reefer, it's tough sledding. I mean, I didn't hate reefer, but coming back and doing dry van, you know, it's definitely different. But you know, there are a lot of places that they, you know, they don't even have inside restrooms for you to use. And if they do, they're filthy. And yeah, truck drivers are nasty, but like, or the other thing is like, there'll be like 20 trucks in the parking lot, but you got to share the restrooms with the 20 people that are working in the warehouse. And there'll be like one toilet. U.S. cold storage, they tend to have pretty good facilities. You might have to wait, but at least they got nice facilities. And there are lots of places out there that do, but there are an awful lot of places that have crap holes, and they do as little as possible for drivers. Their security guards are buttholes, and it just from start to finish, soup to nuts, it's a bad experience. And I had a list when I was at Prime because I could turn down loads. I had a kind of a no-go list, and you might eventually come up with that. Another thing that you're going to have to deal with in trucking is the staff at the trucking company. A lot of times night dispatchers, roadside assist people, hours of, logs people, payroll, your DM or FM or whatever, they're going to be a pain in the ass. I'm really grateful. I have a great DM right now. I had a great DM at night. At Schugel, the guy sucked, and I got a new one. But like my DM at Schugel would leave me he would strand me places and just go home or even go on vacation. Like he left me sitting in Montana one time. The next morning I call in. I just called any number I could think of because he wasn't picking up the phone. They're like, oh yeah, he went on vacation. He went on vacation and left me in Billings, Montana, like without a load. And I was like, what the hell? So you're going to have to deal with staff. And I'll be candid. I expect people to be good at their jobs, and oftentimes I'm disappointed. One of the guys that I couldn't stand at Prime, who was a night dispatcher, he finally got fired, but he effed up things left and right when I was there. Nobody liked him. Nobody. Like, I never met a driver that goes, oh yeah, that guy is cool. But here's the thing, even people that you may like might not be on your side at all, or often or ever. And they might, you might be like, oh, they're pleasant to deal with, but they're still gaslighting you. You can count on that in this industry. You really can. You can count on it. It happens at every company. I'm not saying every person, but every company. Another thing to consider is how is this job, this industry, going to impact your health? Because you're going to be in a sedentary job. Good, healthy food options are a struggle. It's a stressful job at times. Your circadian rhythms are going to be jacked up unless you have a dedicated job where you just drive days. And even a lot of dedicated jobs are overnight jobs, right? Like you pick up at 10 o'clock in the evening and drop off at 4 and go back to the other place. Your health is going to take a beating, and especially if you're not good at taking care of yourself. You're going to be, I don't know anybody in trucking that doesn't have to drive at night at some point. Some jobs, like reefer, you're constantly awake in the middle of the night. You have, it's going to be like you show up at 10 p.m. and then they call you at midnight to go into a door. You get in a door and then they call you at 2:30 in the morning so you can give them a lumper code. And then at 4 they kick you out of the place, and you got to try to find a place to park and try to get some sleep. And yeah, you can work your clock to use all that downtime as your break, but then you're running the next day on really not good sleep. And even if you can stay awake, even if you have a high tolerance for sleeplessness, it still does a number on your body. It's still not good for you. I was in the military, right? There were a gazillion times where we went, 36 hours without sleeping or whatever. It happens, right? It's part of the job, but it's not good for you. And even if you can get into a very set schedule, but you're running at night, that's not even good for you. It's just not. So this job is not going to be a friend to your health. You're going to have to push back on the lifestyle to stay healthy and stay in good health. Benefits. let's talk about benefits for a second. A lot of trucking companies have okay to good benefits, but a lot more of them, it seems, have crap benefits. I've seen several companies. I've looked at 3 companies this year, looked at their benefits pretty hard, and none of them had good ones. Sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to bash the company. They just don't have good benefits. And the crazy thing is that that's the case for their staff too. A company that has a 2% match that vests over 5 years for a 401k, that's crap. Okay? It's crap. I look at, and I'm fortunate because I have a pension, I have health insurance that's dirt cheap, but I was in the military, right? Like, if you don't have that luxury, it's really tough. Like, there are people that are coughing up hundreds of dollars a week for benefits, and those benefits are just not that good. It really is, going back to what I was saying about how much we pay for healthcare in this country. We pay more, but get less. And, and unfortunately, the fact that healthcare benefits, forget about the 401k for a second, but the fact that the healthcare benefits are tied to work, keeps people prisoner a lot of times in jobs they don't want. It really is, anti, free agency, if you will. And then the last thing I want to talk about is your reputation. I've documented that companies will put out false information about drivers who leave their companies, and they will lie on things like Drive a Check and other sources that about drivers, and you have to be cognizant of that, right? Like, I've changed companies several times, and many of these companies, even though at the time I left, they begged me to come back. By the way, I got emails. They begged me to come back and said I would always be welcome back. They turned around and put stuff out there like not eligible for rehire, okay? Because they get all butthurt when you leave, especially if you leave in less than a year. Now, there are people out there on YouTube that are like, oh, well, if you have a good relationship. Look, if I have a good relationship with a company, I wouldn't leave, okay? If I thought I was being treated fairly and taken care of, I would stay. I don't change jobs because I am loving where I'm at, okay? Because if I did, I wouldn't leave, like, I've had other jobs where I was in the Navy for 20 plus years. I could have left, but I liked it. I liked where I was at. I felt like I got treated fairly and with respect. I virtually guarantee that if you find a company that you like, and here's the other thing I've said. A lot of times people in this industry, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because Americans think this is a thing. They judge you by how much they think you make, right? And if they think they make more than you do, they think they're better than you are, or smarter than you are, or more talented, or whatever it is, right? But if you're happy at a company, then you should stay at that company, because the saying, grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. I mean, it kind of is true. Now, here's the interesting thing. The reason that's the saying is because when you get on the other side of the fence, you're like, oh, that other fence is on where I just came from. The grass is greener. That's because you're not there, right? You're not in the moment. But don't be afraid if you do get into this industry. Don't be afraid to look out for yourself, stick up for yourself. A lot of people are afraid to do that. But, every dog has his day, right? And there's going to come a time, and if the trucking economy really starts turning around, the power will be in the hands of the drivers. There will be drivers that will be able to leave where they're at and go do something better. And, I encourage you to constantly be updating your resume and having an escape plan, because a lot of changes going on in trucking. You know, Schneider just bought Cowan Systems, and Cowan Systems is a local company here. They're based in Baltimore. They have like 1,800 trucks. Schneider just bought them. You know, I don't drive at Cowan. I've known people in the past that have. I don't know how that's going to impact them being a part of Schneider, but the 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 rich get richer, right? The big companies are going to get bigger. We saw the deal with Trans Am and Prime. You know, it wouldn't surprise me that KNX is looking for another acquisition. I happen to think they're a pretty well-run company, but you know, on a granular level, that might not be true for individual drivers. You know, so if you're thinking about coming into this industry, do your homework. You know, research what you can, learn what you can. I mean, on YouTube, take things with a grain of salt. You know, there are people at Prime that just love Prime. That wasn't my experience. Maybe because I demand more. Maybe I have higher standards. I don't know. Maybe I just get pissed sooner than other people. It could be all of those. But, you know yourself, know what you're willing to tolerate, and know what kind of commitment you're making before you take the leap. Because a lot of people have come into this industry and left disappointed. And that's too bad, right? Because we need good drivers. There are plenty of people that are bad drivers and have no business being on the road. Hell, there's plenty of them that don't even probably have valid licenses. But I think the trucking industry would be smart to try to attract good people, solid citizens. But their their actions don't really say that that's what they want to do. But anyway, I'm not going to change the trucking industry really. You know, it is what it is. And you know, maybe someday somebody comes along and has a better model and attracts all the best talent. And I will say there are companies out there like that, but those are the companies that are oftentimes they're just not hiring, right? Like they're the job that I talked about one time where I said somebody's got to die for you to get in. And there are a lot of companies out there like that where they have very limited positions because they take care of their people. But anyway, thanks for watching. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Be safe on the road. Today is, I think, the busiest travel day in of the year. Just be patient. I know if you're driving a truck, somebody's going to cut you off. They're going to cut in front of you and then immediately slam on the brakes. Just, back off, try to drive at night. Do your best and come out safe on the other side of the holiday. And I'll be back on the road on Monday, and we'll just try to make a buck here. But anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.